So, this episode, I want to really share a little about and hopefully inspire people to understand where they fit in with all that's going on in the world and to feel more inner security
Mm.
and less fear.
Well, and we have all kinds of stories to touch base on from this last week.
Do share, Thomas.
Yeah, I think, well, what did we say? The first one is probably the Greenland thing with Trump.
Oh, yeah, it's been in the news.
And it's been in the news. I guess the next one is the Board of Peace. Another one is the IMF and AI talking about
Right.
the transition in the workforce. In other words, certain white-collar jobs are going to go away. And however, but blue-collar jobs might stay. I mean, you guys can fill in some of the gaps here. And, we're just living in this time of transition. And is there anything that I forgot?
Well, I don't think we need to really share like all the 50 articles that we talked about. But let's dig into some.
Okay,
Well, there's a
so the
common
key.
denominators. I think that's what you're
Yes.
bringing up about in the beginning of how inner security versus fear, and that energy of peace. Like, am I at peace in all my situations? And I think that's what stands out to me when we go over these highlighted things. And this is a global scale, right? That we're talking about the whole Greenland and the Northern Hemisphere, and then, of course, with the Board of Peace focused on the Middle East.
In 19 countries. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's
So far, yeah.
there's a lot going on, but I think you're spot on about how am I going to be insecure, or am I going to and moved by fear, or am I going to be secure and that have that inner security? And just to kind of kick that off, I was going back over some of our stuff, that with the orientation program that people go through, and it's right there in the very beginning. It just talks about how basically all outer forms of security are just an illusion. That until you get that inner security and recognize who you are, where you came from, where you're going type thing, like that's the only true form of security. Everything else can be pulled out at any time for any weird thing. But if I have that inner peace, that's forever. Like I can go anywhere. And that's part of what inspired me about the whole Greenland thing. It's like, God, it created such a stimulus. And,
In the
American president, he's so out there sometimes and bombastic, it's kind of like, what did he say now? And oh my God, this is supposed to be my representative, and it's easy to take it personally. And then but if I come back home to where am I in all this? That's when I settle down, and then I can pierce through and get more facts.
yeah, I'm so glad you started that in this way, especially with working with the Wayshores College, because for a long time, I was very fearful about things going on in the world. And so these days I notice myself that I do have that inner security. And and people I work with and people I interact with on a daily and weekly basis, I am noticing, and I come up to walls a lot of times where they don't have that inner security. And I think that's the one key aspect around recognizing what is the spiritual perspective of the stories out there, because there's all these stories. And like even this week when the thing came up, well, it's always about Trump, but but also recently about the little kid in Minnesota that supposedly the ICE agents grabbed so they can get, there were all a big elaborated story that brought up a lot of fear and insecurity in several people I knew during this week. And
that you work with.
yeah, well, and outside of that too. So there's different other people too.
Okay.
But recognizing how to gain that inner security for ourselves is really a powerful thing, because, like we say every week, I mean, these stories and many other ones we've talked about are continuations of the next one, and it's always going to be that way.
That's what strikes me, is that there's, dare I say it, nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
In the sense that, sure, it's a slightly different situation in Greenland or a slightly different situation in Gaza and the Board of Peace, but the ICE situation, there's always something going on that can stimulate my insecurity if I don't have that inner security. That the outer is always evolving and transitioning. And we were talking a little bit earlier about the AI taking over certain jobs, right?
Right.
And well, I'm old enough to know that back when they were talking about plant automation, that was a big scary thing to people. A couple of times in my lifetime in the manufacturing world, that was a concern of people. But gosh, we're still here. We're more productive than ever. There's more people here than ever in the United States, and we're more affluent in some ways than ever. And the average person, even if you're poor, you probably have a big screen TV and an iPhone and all those things, that never used to be part of it. So.
Yeah. Well, I agree that the whole, it comes down to something simple, is going back to the inner security, right? And that allows peace to be in my life, right? It lets my body be at ease. And it's, even knowing all I know, I can still get stimulated. I can still get, like, what the heck, and all this kind of stuff. And so it's amazing how if I'm gain a little bit more inner security, or I allow myself to remember those bigger picture points of how then it just gives me brings that electricity of emotion down. And then I can go and say, okay, what are the facts? Right. And then I start going in and I start finding out, oh, there are more facts behind this. And, oh, this isn't even factual. Or, oh, okay, this thing with the whole Greenland thing, right? Like, I started getting stimulated with this, like, oh, you son of a gun. You're like, yeah, do you have to be this way all the damn time? It's like, okay, and then I go and I start finding out more facts after I go through my little rigmarole, right? Of
your little human thing.
My little human thing. I go out and get facts, and then I go, right. Everybody's pointing in the same direction. Like a lot of the European people have been talking about this issue with Greenland and setting our boundaries and borders with Russia and with China. This has been talked about, and it's been pushed so long that now when somebody goes to change it or do something with it, it's like a big deal because it's changing the norm. Yet all the people in strategic positions say, something's got to be done here. This has got to happen. So then we see the pushback and all this kind of thing. But bottom line is, I didn't know that. I wouldn't have gone there to get those facts if I was caught in feeling angry or insecure about the situation. But the moment I settled down, I let myself go a little bit further and go, oh, okay, right. So there is a reason behind this. Oh, there are these people who are playing games with this people's lives and people's security. And now when you go to put your boundaries, they're gonna rebel. So it's just interesting to see how if I let myself get insecure about something, how easy it is to get blinded by that emotion and not get into the facts.
So it's interesting because when I was talking to a couple people recently around different situations that were going on and emotions were starting to get up, right? They started telling me things that happened like when they were kids. Like it just like, sometimes, I recognize that in my energy field, as well as when someone recognizes the impact an energy field around them can have with other people. I recognize that my energy can stimulate people sometimes to share.
Right.
And sometimes to share things they wouldn't maybe share with other people.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Isn't that interesting? And so, so that also goes for the positive and the not so positive, right? Like so my inner security, I guess, helps other people feel more secure versus fearful, because I don't really have that fear. But so that's what I've noticed lately, is the fact that people have been sharing more of what happened when they were 5 or 7 or a baby, or what happened in the environment. And it really struck me about how those early age, really the first 7 years, are so critical in how you work with your energy and also the outer environment, which is what we talk about every week. What's going on in the outside? What's going on in the world? What are we all experiencing? But it all goes back to those initial first 7 years, and what were the foundations? How were they laid to how you're going to act and interact later down the line?
We exist in a highly intellectual world, and often the feeling part where your inner wisdom lies gets left out. There's a way to feel more in balance with all parts of yourself. This way is by accessing a spiritual bigger picture of who you are as a soul. Check out the link in the show notes to access a free video series created by the Wayshowers College to support your journey and moving through this game of life. Your intellect and feeling parts will love it.
Yeah, unless I get in touch with, as we call it, our true feelings versus our emotional, merry-go-rounds that we keep jumping on board. I get stimulated. My programming will stimulate me and stimulate my emotions and reactions rather than I'm now reacting. I've now gone down the road of a whole narrative that doesn't even exist when I get the facts. So it's a balance between what I truly feel and tune into, using my sensitivity, my ESP, my natural intuition, and then getting an understanding, based on the facts. So one of those great examples is they were talking about the 5-year-old that was, taken into custody by ICE. And of course, the story is the father ran away. And what are they going to do with the 5-year-old? They've got to do something with him. They're supposed to take the kid and put him in a foster home or whatever they do with him, and
Because he's been abandoned, right?
yeah. So once you get the facts, all that hysteria, and I guess it's what's happening out in the world. How often does that happen to me in my close-in life, where somebody has a reaction to a change at work? Oh, no, they're going to do this now at the office. We've got a new policy. And until you get the facts as to what that's about, often that oh, okay, I guess I can see why they need to do that. Or they're just evolving through learning. There's a people in charge or the crew chiefs are implementing a solution. I may, from my experience and my sensitivity, go, oh, I can see that's not going to be the best outcome. I can see that's not going to work. It's not going to accomplish what they would like it to accomplish. But I find I have to stay relaxed so I can be respectful and allow people to move through their opportunity and have their learning experiences.
When you're sharing that, going back to that inner security and peace, because that's the theme of all this here in this last week, and I think going forward, when I'm stimulated, I can't see the goodness of anything, right? And I just was thinking also about, you brought up that board of peace, which focuses on maintaining and solidifying that peace in the Middle East energy, right? What's been created there. Yeah. And now we've got 19 countries signed up, and more's coming. And then there are certain countries who are like, no, I don't want that.
Or they're playing a game
with
it.
There's a thing with it. And so and part of it is stimulated because of insecurities, right? Oh, this is going to replace NATO, or, oh, this might stimulate these people for which I have, a relationship with. And all that is true. You have to take that into consideration, right? I have to take stuff into consideration. Even when somebody brings me a good idea, I have to think of the stuff I'm involved in. Mm-hmm. So it's a fair thing. But am I doing it from the perspective of movement going forward? Is this going to help us fulfill our purpose? What was the point of NATO in the first place, right?
Or the United Nations.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. The United Nations thing, it's like, well, what was the point of all that? So when I start making things more dogmatic, in other words, the means start becoming more important than what I'm trying to accomplish. Well, wasn't the whole thing about peace in the first place? I can see how when I get stimulated, I'll lose sight of actually what the mission is. Can this do something better than that? Great, let's do it. Right?
Right. Or let's try it.
Let's try
let's
it.
see, let's evolve through it. It may not work.
That's right.
But parts of it may work, and we're going to learn something.
And so that I guess the phraseology I'll say to this, and you've all heard this before, is, am I part of the solution or am I part of the pollution? And in this case, what I'm really noticing is anything that wants to stop or slow down the energy, slow down progress, that's part of the pollution. That's going to be part of the pollution. Can I say, hey, listen, I have these concerns, but I recognize the goal. Let's keep moving, but I need these addressed, right? That takes a cool head. That takes maturity. That takes inner security.
Inner security. We'll say that again. It seems to me that when these things come up, and especially when it's around more than one or two or three people, like this is a congregation with 19 plus coming.
Yeah.
Yep.
That the energy, it's so enormous.
There's energy there.
There's lots of energy there.
Yeah.
And also, so I think for myself, I can feel into that. That's where people get stimulated, and that's where their
Sure.
inner security and the fear
Yeah.
of what's that for me? How am I going to be affected? Because I know for myself, there's people around me that, depending upon my actions, they're very fearful.
Yeah.
And because their security, like I'll tell you, when I got divorced, people around me there were some people pissed off because their inner security was like, well, what is this for me? So it all comes back to what is it?
Security, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, yeah, their inner security was
Based on their outer security.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So how does that, how do these stories interact with the fear and what, Tom?
Yeah, good.
No, you go, honey, because you're
A concepts of their outer security, just to clarify that.
there you go.
Yeah.
I can relate. I mean, there's things where people will come into my life and then there'll be people who move out of my life, and how that can stimulate the heck out of me. Like, I'll want it to go back to the old way. I want to think the old way. I want that the boyish part of me, because I was connected to that way. And so, there's that old saying is that when I was a boy, I thought as a boy, I spoke as a boy, I reasoned as a boy. But when I became a man, I had to put boyish things aside. And so that's that difference between being childlike with maturity or just staying in that childish energy. And the price I pay for having that inner security is I have to let go of that adolescent halfway in, halfway out kind of thing. Otherwise, all these larger decisions, where now we're talking about all these global things with boards of peace and the Greenland thing and all this type of thing. All I do is I just bring my maze right into this clean situation, and so it's no wonder why we have wars and stuff like that. They just keep bringing all their first 7 years nonsense into something clean.
Yeah. And there was something that
I love
struck me about all
moment
that.
every time we have an episode, and Tom's
Well,
like,
it's deep, profound, man.
it's like the light bulb goes ding. Yes.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
When there's competition,
yeah.
unhealthy competition is that, well, it's not our guy, it's not our guy's idea, it's his idea or their idea, so now I've got to fight it. That's, to me, an unhealthy competition, instead of looking at the cup as half full rather than half empty and say, okay,
Yeah.
great. We're moving in a direction I want to move into. How do I back this? How do I help this energy move through? Because something great may come of it if I just get on board and back it. I'm not saying I guess one has to really discern, am I getting stimulated by this outer competition because, it was his idea or her idea instead of my idea. So I've often said, when working with creativity, everybody's usually got an angle in on the whole pie. And if I'm more open to like their angle, I start to go, oh, they're actually saying something very similar, and that's another piece to it all.
I think that's a key right there, is being able to have the wisdom and the maturity to be able to see that there's another perspective. There's something else to contemplate. And I think that's where, especially the last 4 to 5 years, we've really been in a lot of turmoil, because most people, it's just like there's no gray. It's black, it's white.
Yeah.
There's no gray.
Yeah, there's no teamwork. The just to hone in on one of the things that the latest thing is the IMF is getting concerns about AI, and so we brought that up.
Uh-huh.
But generally speaking, we know that there's change coming. I mean, everybody can feel it, right? And for those who are more alert to their environment or more sensitive to people and their environment, we're going to feel stuff early. And so all the people who were predictors of future, those in our history who were really sensitive or prophetics and sense things out, what made them the most successful is they were able to detach their personality from what they were feeling.
Oh.
And so that's what made him the most successful and made him more accurate.
Or they were asleep like Edgar Casey, right?
Yeah. Well, that's right, because he removed his conscious mind from it. But even others that had that ability, that did it more to conscious level, they become more successful. We become more successful when we're able to just feel without fear. Because when I know change is coming, that will stimulate things, especially if I can feel pain, right? If we all get together now and project ourselves into the future with this AI stuff, or with this change within the Russia and this and that, you can pick up fear, you can pick up pain, because there is pain going forward. People will suffer here and there, and so there will be great things that happen. There's the whole thing in the soup bowl. Everything will be there, but I can feel that. So if I stay relaxed and I look through all that, then what happens is I start floating to the bigger picture. And that's when I can discern, okay, what's going on. Now, I said all that because when you get relaxed with the AI thing, because the AI is going to replace a lot of situations, what it boils down to is people are concerned that they're going to be replaced. They're going to get separate from what they've come to do. That's the nucleus of what this comes down to. And that's a fair point, right? Once you get past like, oh no, they're going to be Terminators and kill us all, right? Once you kind of get past that fear, then it comes down to, well, wait a minute. We have a large group of people in these different countries that are going to start getting displaced, because the automation and AI will be able to do those things better, more efficiently, and less expensive. So that's going to happen. So now it becomes, okay, what do we need to do about that? How can we move forward as people? How can we move forward? But I'll never get there if I'm all wrapped up like they're going to make the Terminators and they're going to, oh my God, the whole world's going to end. I'm going to wait. I'm going to push and wait till it comes right to the edge. And then here comes the change. And now I'm not ready for it, because I've been fighting it with fear the whole time.
Yeah. And I think that's why there's a resurgence of people moving into Christianity and religion and spirituality and other ways that that's not necessarily, by the book. And, there are people who have they're being more thought provoking of, how to move through their life. And that's what excites me about what we do. And what we share is the fact that, we've got these tools, and we've got something new coming up in February too.
You bet.
The Reawaken membership, which will be super awesome. And that will help people and support people in recognizing the energy they're working with, how to work with their guidance day in and day out. I think for myself, that's been the crucial part, because years ago when I called myself a hot, energetic mess, I didn't have that connection. I did have that connection, but I was a damn hot, energetic mess, right?
You're still hot.
And my energetic mess. Okay, well, we'll talk about that later, Tom. But
Whoops.
but being able to connect that spiritual part in
Yeah.
in a real world way. That's what I like too, is like, especially with our new offering, is that it's not woo-woo metaphysical weird crap. It's practicality.
Yeah.
How to be practical with working day to day with your guidance, working with some keywords, the energy of what's happening, and we're moving through in February and March and April, and be your own really guru.
Yeah.
Be your own guide, be your own
Best psychic.
Absolutely. No need for any other psychic
Yeah.
outside of me. Absolutely.
As the Earth's crust shifts and changes, our lives do the same. One way to maneuver through the small and large moments that shake us to the core is by reviving your connection to spirit, gathering ways to cleanse your energy field, embracing spiritual awarenesses to give you a bigger picture, and knowing that you are not alone on your journey can be a great support. The Soulquake Survival Guidebook is a great companion to meet you where you're at and support reviving your connection to spirit in earth-shaking times. Get your copy today through Amazon Worldwide in paperback, ebook, or in audio, and begin embracing more clarity, inner peace, and enthusiasm for your life and what you've come to do.
Yeah, it's just working with that, that natural intuition, like, becoming more aware of what I've got to work with, that I have, spiritual helpers, and that I never really have to buy into this idea that I'm going to die, because I never have died. I never will die.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a soul. So how do I make that practical? Religion likes to give you rules and guidelines, and there's usually a positive purpose to
Structure, yeah.
the structure. And so what strikes me is they're looking for some structure to help with their security. And that's a good thing. I mean, the more that people are relaxed. And, but it's just it's a stage. There's a point where, I kind of reawaken what's always been there, and then start working with those, clarifying my concepts and clarifying the truths that I probably feel are true anyway.
Well, I mean, okay, so we're talking about these stories, and we've identified that the energy all has to do with that inner security versus fear.
Right.
So here's the challenge. If I just think for myself, or I think for my sisters and brothers, what if this week all I do is just focus on inner security and peace? So going back to your point with these memberships that we have and people get involved in them, they give me that opportunity to come back home and practice inner peace and that inner security wherever I go.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if everybody that we knew and everybody that they knew just started practicing a little inner security, that peace inside, through their whole situation. I'm going to work today, and the theme I'm going to go to work today with is inner security and inner peace. I'm going to come home and deal with the kids, but I'm going to do it with inner peace and inner security. When I review my finances, I'm going to do it with inner peace and inner security, no matter whether I'm up or down. Now, I wonder how that would set things going forward. If I just did it for a week, what would happen for my energy? What would happen for my body? What would happen to the people around me? How would I react and respond to people? If that's the practicality you're talking about, that why we do this. Imagine if I just did that for a week.
Well, I can tell you that I do it for weeks. Tell you what happens to me. Hey, Tom, do you want to say it happens to me? No. What I have found for myself is in working with some of these key elements that we're going to be sharing with people soon, starting in February. I mean, we've been doing it for years, but we put it together. We've repackaged it into a really amazing membership and support
Focused.
for those. Right. Is that my guidance sets up situations for me to experience inner security and peace, or experience, like, the key word of the month was pioneer. So I have had multiple experiences of how am I a pioneer in my life? It's phenomenal. So, I think that's the thing too about, the woo woo, the magical, the mystical, about spirituality. And it's not about that. It's being practical.
Yeah.
And it's simple. I think that's my thing too, is we talk about these very complex situations that are going on in the world, but the simplicity comes back to
Yes.
myself, my guides, my energy.
Yeah.
How am I feeling, thinking, and acting as I move through? And some of these key components really will help in the, what's coming that we're sharing.
Yeah, and as I become aware of, thought habits that I have, like when impatience moves in or a little fear moves in, so I don't want to wrap up the last 2% of something, or I just all those kinds of things that I experience, which I'd never admit to anybody, but in fact I go through.
Don't admit it.
Yeah. Peeling the layers of the onion is that idea that we, there's a way of describing it, but those materials often put forward ideas that are like more like true, like the true situation, or I'm thinking about there's one that talks about being when you're in personal, business, and social. And years ago, I used to find that really oh, that's confusing. I don't know. And how does really? It's so simple. It's just so simple. And not everything that religion or our society has shared with us is wrong. There's a lot of truth there.
Yeah.
But now I'm finding I'm kind of reawakened, or
Right.
things aren't mystical. These mystical capabilities. It's only mystical because I'm just not aware.
Right.
The spotlight isn't shining on the fact that I do this all the time. I
Right.
pick up thoughts and feelings from people all the time. And some I accept, and some I just assume are me, and then some I go, oh boy, that can't be me. I mean, everything's okay, and or I have that flash of intuition of how something's going to play out. So
That everybody has.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I mean, even people that don't understand or work with what we work with, they tell me all the time.
yeah,
things that
even when
happen.
they deny they have it, and then I go, you're like somebody that has the most intuition I've ever seen, and you don't believe in it. Like you do it every day. That's
Yes.
part of your strength and your leadership.
And then they wonder, why does this happen? And I just sit in the
Yeah.
back and go, okay, I know why it happens. But
Yeah. Well, okay. So coming back to that full circle,
Yep.
everything we're talking about, I have solutions. Everything becomes simple or simplified when I'm coming from a solid pivot point inside. So all these complexities, and there are complexities when we look at these news things and like, oh my gosh, and the kid, and the ICE people in Minnesota, and they're doing all these things, and the illegal immigrants or the whatever, they're swooping up civilians and all this kind of stuff. It's like the moment I get relaxed and start looking from that perspective, all of a sudden there's clarity on the situation. I know where I can help. I know where I don't need to help. I know where I can, let things happen, and I know where I need to put some energy into. But that doesn't happen until I get that simplicity, that bigger picture. It doesn't happen. I'm ruled by the event, or I'm ruled by people around me. I'm ruled by my emotions. In essence, I become a slave to the situation. And I think anyone, at least for me, I'm sure you all too, anyone listening to this, I don't want to be a slave to anything outside of me. I want to be in charge of my energy, right?
Mhm.
And that is the distinction, is that if I'm not in charge of my energy, then who is? And if someone can get my cage gets rattled, or someone says something and I get all worked up about it, the truth is I'm no longer in command of my situation. That's the fact. And we can sugarcoat it all day. Oh, but they did this to me. Well, great, then do something about it, but don't get reactive. Just stay into feel, think, act. Right? When I'm in that reactive state, it means that I've lost my inner security and I lost my peace. Someone else is in charge of my energy. And that's why there's all this up and down about these situations, in my opinion, because they've lost their peace.
So let's talk about peace. And there's a really great story that I found recently about a group of monks who are walking for peace from Texas over to DC. It started in October of 2025, and they've made their pilgrimage. And there's like pictures online of them on like walking across a bridge, and thousands of people are with them, just kind of walking and supporting. And I got chills. I'm saying this. So there are so many different variations and situations out there of peace that's trying to come forward. And this is a really big one. So as soon as I heard this story, I just got full body chills. I'm like, we need to talk about the walk for peace.
What I love about that story is that again, there's all sorts of folks. I mean, I feel good that there's other people who are concerned about peace. So when we talked about the Board of Peace, I'm like, yep, okay, that's what that's about. I'm on board. That's part of my thrust. And you've got a lot of people involved. Okay, now we can do something about that. We have a chance. So again, becoming more aware of the healing nature of the soul and the mystical nature of our thoughts, that this becomes, there's a real solution there. So those souls who are monks at this stage, that's their whole focus, is being more aware of their spirituality, the bigger picture, not just the physical human experience. And those thoughts are a healing, they radiate out as healing. So who knows? It's hard to know exactly the positive influence that they've, extended into the environment.
This is it's an underrated story because it's not emotional.
Right.
It's not attached to some big controversy. They're just having that pilgrimage for peace. And that's the amazing thing. It's also a sifter. It's also culls out one thing from the other, right? It separates out the people who want to be involved in moral issues and people who are actually like, this is actually what I want to be a part of. And that's what really makes it stand out to me. And I think there was an old quote, or I don't know if it's a quote, but an old thing from Mother Teresa.
Hey, I like that lady.
Where they had some young people come to her and say, hey, listen, we're having an anti-war rally. We'd like you to join us. And she told them, hey, get the hell out of here. Once you have a peace rally, call me. Right. And so she figured it out. Like, you're out there fighting and putting energy into the thing that is not what I'm about. When you're willing to put energy into what I'm about, which is peace, then we'll focus on that. But of course, there's not as much controversy with that. It doesn't stimulate everybody in their emotions, right?
Yeah.
So it's a great thing because it helps me continually make decisions in my life. It helps me go, okay, what do I really want to be a part of? What do I really want to do? Because the people who are doing those things, I'm going to find myself close to them. I want to be a part of that. So then all I need to do is make sure I call out, I sift out all of the things that can pull me into the garbage, into the lower way of thinking, so to speak. The religious people might call it, that the accuser or the demons, or confusion, whatever you want to call it. Psychiatrists might say the lower self, whatever it is, it comes down to, am I going to work with my potential? Am I really going to go after what I want? And that's what I love about this story.
All right. So we started this episode with inner security versus fear, chatted a little bit about peace. So let's do a wrap up on the commonalities of these stories and moving forward for the week.
Well, this idea I've had since the start of this podcast and just before, and that, Marco Rubio gave a speech at the Davos situation and conference, whatever that is. And he said, you know, the thing about Trump is he doesn't think about what's going to go wrong. He goes, he thinks more in terms of what he can create, what we can create, what would be the ideal outcome. And I thought to myself, you know, I need to do more of that. I need to, instead of compromising in my thoughts, what is it that I ideally would like to work towards? And then there's energy and momentum. So how I relate to this, to the peace, is that, yeah, what do I really want? I want to move towards that peace in my life. I want to move towards that peace in my environment. So let me work towards what I see it could be, the potential, rather than focus on what might go wrong or, you know, compromise what I'm trying to do for myself because, oh, that's a safe way and the moral issue of, you know, all that kind of thing. Anyways, I just found that I was like, no wonder the guy's like super successful. I mean, that's going to stimulate a lot of people, you know, but I feel like I could implement that in my life.
Yeah. And for myself, I would say that some focusing on my inner security and working with the spiritual part of myself really supports the fear not coming in so closely to me. And when it does, I'm able to really recognize where I'm at energetically and how to work with the energies of what's going on in the collective and in my work and in my home environment. And so really solidifying the fact that working with the spiritual part of me is so important.
Right.
You have set your foundation and are awake spiritually, but the day-to-day grind is still a challenge. To support this moment in time is the monthly Reawaken membership. This monthly membership offers you a deeper dive into what you're feeling energetically and ways to gain more insights and awarenesses on how you move through it all. For pennies a day, you'll receive the Wayshores philosophy and a compact home study course of the month created by the Wayshores College. A bonus that is serviced is a monthly live regrouping with T&T Spirit Works, offered in 2 time zones. So no matter where you are reawakening in the world, you can join real people online and regroup what is going on for yourself. This can create more inner stability, peace, feeling grounded, and awareness from within that you are not alone moving through your journey. Check out the link in the show notes to start reawakening on a deeper level today.
I suppose for me, the real key is being clear with what I want and being clear with what I need, and making sure there's a priority order to things, making sure that I'm in love with what I do, right? And if I can't be doing what I love, then put love into it, right? And that, what that does is it brings me back into the moment. It brings me back into the present. And so for me, the wrap up has to do with just enjoying the moment, being a part of what I want to be a part of, acknowledging when there is that insecurity, acknowledging when people are starting to get caught in moral issues or I get caught into moral issues, acknowledging it. So, okay, that's what that is. And then move to the next step. Otherwise, I'm leaving the door open to the confrontation inside, the running around inside, and ultimately knowing that, do I want to be part of the solution or part of the pollution? And as long as I'm getting fulfillment, that's what's the key, because that's what I take with me.
Brilliant. So whatever place you find yourself in these days, as you're working with your inner security and the peace within yourself, make sure that you practice patience. And then you might be surprised at where you find yourself at and when the next discerning news comes up and how to discern and move through it.
Sounds great.
So thank you for watching and listening to another episode of Spiritual Perspectives, Discerning News. I almost said enthusiastically spiritual. Slip. We are so thankful for you and hope you enjoyed this episode. And we look forward to coming back soon and sharing more insights on how to move through that news stories that are out there and staying relaxed with it. Cheers. To keep the enthusiasm going, please like, subscribe, or comment below. We would love to hear from you.